the one thing that did make it was when I mentioned Vetrimaran's name, I heard someone scream out really loudly, which I didn't expect. யாருன்னா இங்க வெற்றிமாறனை பத்தி தெரிய போகுது.
My favorite Tamil movie director, Vetrimaran, he would often say,
LG Perungayam notice பண்ணு. I was like, bro,
Mysore Santhal.
Mysore Santhal, LG Perungayam.
Bro, I was like, that's the thing. Did you have a particular reason for naming the calendar Muthu Travels? Because Muthu drives the chariot and all that.
Like YouTubers waiting for Venba. Tamil gaming.
I saw the video. They made a whole cooking thing to announce that Venba's coming out of the internet.
அதெல்லாம் நான் எதிரே பார்க்கல.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Humans of GameDev Podcast. I am your host Karan Ganesh.
And I'm your co-host Akshay.
Tamil New Year is coming up in a couple of days and we wanted to make a special episode. So over the last year, there was one game that stood out to all of us, which was called Venba. Tamil game which is based on an immigrant family who's living in Canada. It's a story that highlighted the culture really well. We're very lucky that we have the person behind the game, Abhi, with us today. And if you do not understand Tamil, there are some parts in this episode which you speak in Tamil. So please turn on subtitles and we'll cut right into the episode. Welcome to the show, Abhi, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Karan and Akshay. Super happy to be here and talk about Venba with a couple of Tamil game devs.
Firstly, we wanted to congratulate you. I was at IGF this year. That's how I got to see you. But Seumas McNally Grand Prize at IGF, Best Debut Game, GDCA, Social Impact Award, GDCA. And also you got the nomination at TGA last year, which is for the Best Debut Indie Game. That's a lot of amazing recognition for this game. How did you feel about that? Like, what was your reaction when you got to these levels?
Completely. I think this is just a pattern throughout Venba development is that none of this is expected or we're completely surprised each time. And we're very, very grateful. And this is this stems even from initial reactions to the trailer and teaser. Venba kept becoming bigger than I expected it to be. It was supposed to be a very small, and it is a small personal project. But this level of commercial success or viability, I knew it would reach profitability or something like that, but never thought it would touch these levels. Especially IGF, I did not think we would have the most nominations or we would win grand prize or any of those things. So as we were even with IGF, at this point I was used to writing speeches and not giving them because at TGA we lost, at DICE we lost. So I actually didn't write any speeches until we got to the table. And then I was like, wait, what if we do win? And then I started writing on the table. And as we were losing each category, I was like, yeah, it's par for the course. So the grand prize was completely unexpected. We're really, really happy with that. The team was super happy. And same with GDCA. But more than that, I think after the awards, seeing a lot of the devs who showed up and shared a lot of kind words about Venba, and we went to a bar to celebrate. And so many developers showed up, people we didn't reach out to. They just showed up because they knew we were there. It was really nice to see all of them and see all this love for Venba. And even behind the scenes, once you win the award, they take you backstage and they ask you, if it's not you, who do you think should win? And the first time we mentioned this game called Thousand Times Resist. The second time we won, the people backstage, they said that we were the most named for other people when they asked this question.
That's awesome.
So, I think even though these people don't know us or from before this, but they're really rooting for us in terms of Venba. That's something I was really able to feel that night.
Yeah, and I was there at that point, and between Venba and Baldur's Gate, you guys were tied 3-3, and then in the end it was Game of the Year, which went to Baldur's Gate, but you guys still swept such a great mark. And I was like, wow! Every time the game came up, I started cheering so loud. I was so happy to see this up. But that's really great. It's so happy that you guys won that, and it's been a great recognition, I'm sure. But we want to also get to know behind the scenes, where did all of this start? Abhi getting into the gaming industry, how did that part start?
Yeah. So I grew up in Chennai, Tamil Nadu until I was 12 years old. And I grew up with a lot of games actually. First, I grew up with the Terminator, which is our bootleg version of the NES. And then my dad was trying to get into IT at the time. He was a clerk at a bank and he was trying to teach himself Oracle, SQL, and all these kind of things. So he had a rinky dink like a computer like firm that he would go and hang out in just to learn from that. And the computer they were able to throw out, he brought that home, and that was my entry into like playing a bunch of games. So many like a lot of DOS games, Dangerous Dave, Claw, Lion King.
Oh, Deva. This
Uh,
this is a huge throwback. Like you're talking about DOS games and these secondhand computers.
Yeah.
That's so damn relatable. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure we've all had the same experience. I'm very sure. Mortal Kombat 4, and a bunch of these games, right? And I think as we got older, we got games like Spider Man and Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. But the game I remember vividly was this Anna gave it to me at a book fair, like a floppy disk or a CD. I don't remember. It was Pokemon ROMs, like blue, red, yellow, and like an emulator.
Oh.
And we played Pokemon at the emulator. But the thing is, back then, no one knew that we were playing it on an emulator, and this was meant to be played on a Game Boy. We had no idea. With Pokemon, I'm sure you guys know, once you get to like you can't catch all 151. You have to trade before you can do
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
So my brother and I, we got to like 138, like as much as you can push it. And we were like, how do you get it? How do you get it? And then when we came to Canada, it was a whole like we were still playing Pokemon, which is like 90s level, like 90s, early 90s. And then we come to Canada and people are playing PS3, Xbox 360. So it was a huge, huge jump,
And-
right? And that's when I saw people playing Pokemon, like the newer versions of it. I was like, wait, this is how it's meant to be played? Oh, okay, okay. Like it all clicked, you know? So I had a really strong interest in video games from the beginning. But coming here in Canada, like what changed was that adults were into it. It was not it was not a hobby. It was not something you had to play when your parents are away. You didn't have to hide, you know. It was out and open. People were proud about it. It was a real career. So that kind of thing really made me see it as a real career. And when I was in high school, around grade 12, I decided I'll do computer science because I figured, and now I'm glad I did that because like saying that I'm going into games is a harder sell for my parents. But like my theory was like, if I do programming, then I can get into games as a programmer, and then I can, and that's exactly what
this
happened.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's so relatable for the three of
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. We just
Summer
like,
guys growing up in Chennai and
it's
then
the
be like,
same
I want to
thing.
make video games.
Same thing. Yeah, 100%.
Pretty much the
It's
same hard
interesting.
shell.
Yeah.
This is very interesting to me because I've told this story in many interviews before, but this is the first time I think it feels like I'm just telling like something very obvious. I'm like, of course, we all went through, through the same thing.
No, it's like the same method. Like, you know, I had to study computer science so I could sell that I could do something in games like programming. It's like
Yeah.
that's how I went, and like I studied programming. Of course, now I'm a producer, which is different. But and my sell initially was still through programming, and I was like,
Yeah.
I want to do computer science for games. So yeah, super relatable
Yeah.
out there, man.
Yeah, this
Is it same for you,
just
Akshay?
pretty much the same story. It's just like, oh, okay, the என்னோட script மாதிரி இருக்கு.
Yeah, அது என்ன அந்த 7 ராகம் தான் 7 தாளம்.
Or this other saying which they say, which is like வீட்டுக்கு வீடு வாசப்படி they say. And it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. But I think like it's a bit of a tangent, but like now I think it's really changing in India itself, right? Like I think gaming is seen much more seriously, and like game devs are coming from India, which I'm really happy to see. But back then it was a challenge to make my parents see that and everything. And then I started working at a mobile game company called Yukin Games, and they made games like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeopardy. They would make like take Sony TV shows and make like game versions of them. And I think what Yukin was good at, like even though they were like free to play, like microtransaction kind of games that I don't want to be working on, what was really interesting was that I got to learn a lot of tech, a lot of Unity stuff, and also more importantly, I got to meet fellow game developers who were really passionate about games. So at lunch, we would just talk about like what kind of games do we want to make and stuff like that, right? So, and that's how I met Sam, who's the artist on Venba. And all the time, Sam and I were like, "Oh, this is what I want to make. This is what you want to make. You know, this is how a game should be." Like all these kind of discussions. And around 2019, Sam and I actually started working on a game called Balloon Man, which is about a depressed superhero in a world of superheroes who can only make balloons. Like that's his power. So he's not as cool as the Iron Mans or stuff like that. But like, what happens if he has to take down the Iron Mans and the Supermans of the world? Right. I thought that was really interesting, and it was like a Mega Man style boss rush kind of game. And we were working on it for like about 6-7 months. And that's when I had the idea for Venba. Like just something, I was just at home and like something really struck me, and I wrote down like a scene from the game. I'm like, and I sent it to Sam. I'm like, what if this was a game? And that scene made it into Venba, like pretty much as it is. But immediately Sam was like, oh, I wish we were working on this instead. And with game devs, there's a meme that every time you start a project, you want to abandon it so that you can start a new one. You know, you lose interest and stuff like that. So my
Yeah, pata mari irukku.
Yeah, this also sounds too familiar.
Similar, yeah.
I mean, I have like some 8 projects which I started which aren't finished.
Yeah, my Unity, if you open it, at the time it was like new Unity Project 1, Unity Project 2. It was like that, right? பேரை மட்டும் ஒழுங்கா வச்சுட்டு மீதி எதுவும் மீதி எதுவும் பண்ணவே மாட்டேன். So I didn't want to do that, right? I didn't want to stop Balloon Man just because I've done it so many times before. But like the idea was just too compelling. We couldn't stop thinking about it. And Sam said it's a 10 out of 10 idea, and like he never says that. He's always like, you could be better. You could be. So all of that made us work towards Venba, and that's basically how we got started. Yeah.
I know you mentioned some part of this, on the award where you were like, yeah, the first person you pitched this idea was to Sam, and then you told him about this, and that's how it arose. That's really nice. I mean, it started off as a 2-person thing, and then eventually grew into such a big team, right? That's brilliant. And one thing which we noticed after playing the game, we wanted to know, was cartoon and TV shows like a very big part of it growing up? Because we felt like some part of it was like on the Samurai Jack kind of art style.
The art style was so Samurai Jack, and the first thing which Karan and I were like, we need to talk to him about the cartoons which he watched. Was he a Cartoon Network kid back home or something?
Yeah. So I am a big Cartoon Network person back home, but and I definitely grew up watching like Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, and all of these other great shows, right? But I think, funnily enough, that's not how I conceptualized Venba at all. In my head, Venba was a much more serious kind of game. It's Sam who's 100% like or Cartoon Network variant. Andamari, he's that kind of guy. So he's especially Gendy Tartakovsky, who's the art director for Samurai Jack and stuff. He really loves Samurai Jack, and it's funny, if you tell him that Venba looks like Samurai Jack, he'll get mad because at a time his style was very similar to Samurai Jack. So for Venba, he tried something different, and he gets mad because people still are like, "Hey, that's just Samurai Jack." But I think it's really interesting because it still looks. Like it's really interesting to take an art style like Samurai Jack and apply it to a subject matter like Venba, right? And somehow it doesn't look out of place. And what I really, really like is that Sam is a very positive, very like he doesn't take things seriously and all of that, right? And Venba, by contrast, is a very serious story. And when the first few drafts were even sadder, even more tragic than what is in the game. But because of the art style, it kind of pulled the story into more wholesome territory. And ultimately, I think it made for a better game. But like just by the art being so comforting, I think it made like my story no longer fit that. So I had to like slightly, without realizing, I started to modify the story to be a bit more lighthearted. And yeah, I'm really happy that happened. And for the second game we're working on, it's very similar. Like his art is already influencing the story, and the story is influencing the art.
That's really cool. And I think art was really great. One part which really stuck was music. What were your influences in your childhood? Like, what type of music did you listen to, and how did that integrate into this?
Yeah, so the Alpha something, the music composer, that's my Adiyan, and it's just my brother. So
Okay.
so he got into music even before I got into games and everything. When he was in India around 2006. அப்பதான் வந்து அந்த யுவனோட புதுப்பேட்டை album and all of these things were coming out.
Memories,
iconic.
yes.
Iconic.
Iconic.
That thing was badass.
And like, you know, we all grew up with, you know, Raja and Rahman and everything, but Yuvan is something different, you know. So
Yuvan survived.
Yuvan is drugs, bro.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And Ani, my brother's name, he really got into like Yuvan and all of these kind of things. And what happened is, when we moved to Canada, we had no one else to talk to about music, and like all these new albums that would come out, we would download it from, what is it, Mastermind. Mastermind is new, I think. But Tamil beats, I don't remember. But like, அதை download பண்ணி அதை discuss பண்றதுக்கு யாருமே கிடையாது. So we'd just be discussing with each other, and we would have like really strong opinions about like, this is the best album, that's the best album, and all of that. So as Venba happened, for me the idea was, when we cook at our homes, it's never quiet. We always have a radio or TV or something else on. So because with Venba, it's so small and so short, there's so much culture that I want to share. But I can't do that if everything is done through dialogue. So I wanted like another opportunity to showcase. And one thing is like, okay, what if she turns the radio on? And then that becomes a window for showcasing so much more of our music, and there's so much you can do with that. And I wanted to do like Tamil news comes through the radio and stuff, like make it very grounded in the world. And actually, initially I just wanted to license Ilayaraja songs. Like actually license.
We were actually going to ask you about that, because we saw one photo on the, I think on the DLC part, where we saw this
radio
photo.
section of the
radio
thing,
side, a photo irukkulla, which has Ilayaraja.
Caricature.
Like we were like, is he going to ask you money for just being a part of the photo right now?
Partner royalty.
Yeah, I hope not. So we got into a few conversations. Like the thing is, with our industry, it's not as straightforward as music industry here. It's like music industry here is like, okay, there's a talent, there's an agent, you can talk to them, and then conversations will move forward or not. It's expensive, but to get a yes or no, it's actually straightforward. But back home, it's not like that. To even find the agent, and like there's so much ego battles that you have to navigate before you even find the right person to talk to. And that person is like 10 layers separate from the artist, right? I found that process very frustrating. So, and then I was like, I was talking to my brother, and I was like, what if we make all the sounds ourselves? And then I had the idea, like, if all the music is coming from the radio, so what if like in the 80s it played like a Raja-like song, like inspired by Raja, like, you know, and then in the 90s level it inspired by Deva, and then 2000s inspired by Rahman. So that way, not only does the player see that time is moving forward, but they can also feel through the music. New genres come in, it gets more modern, you know, all of those kind of things, right? So that was very exciting. And for my brother, that was very, very exciting, because he's like, basically what I'm asking him is to make like 7 fan songs, like fan tributes, like make a Raja-like song, make a Rahman-like song, you know? So for him, that was very exciting. Okay, like what does he like about Rahman? What does he like about Raja? And all of that. So that's when, so that's the idea for the soundtrack. And the coolest moment was, the last song we recorded was the put to level song. And Ani was like, what if, that song is inspired by Deva, like a Deva kind of soundtrack. And Ani was like, what if we get Deva to sing? in the song that's
that
inspired
was
by him.
mad when I
Netik, we both saw
when I
that
saw it.
video and
Yeah, we were like, Deva, bro, Annamalai, oh, Deva. I was like,
Annamalai Basha Deva. I was like,
I mean,
because the voice was very familiar to both of us. We were like,
Yeah.
Engyo keta mari irukku. And then when we saw the video, we were like, oh my god, it's actually Deva who came and sang this.
Actually, Deva. I was like, we were flipping for a good 20 minutes. We were like, bro, Deva, bro. And then as I was playing the game, also, I was noticing, oh, these kind of sounds very familiar, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my god, this is Kabir Wasiki from Kurangan fame and all that. So I listened to a lot of indie music. And I was like, Kabir Wasiki, and then there was Castless Collective with Sharp Singh and Arivo and all that. And I was like, wow, okay, this is some good stuff which is going on right now. Which was crazy. And I was like, wow, such good artists you guys have got to collaborate with you on this.
That's all just like, I think now that I look back at it, நீங்க இப்போ சொல்லும்போது தான் லைக் ஆமால இவ்வளோ பேர் இருக்காங்களே அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி எனக்கு லைக் it didn't like they all just fell into place. For Deva, Ani, one time he dropped out of university here. He went to Chennai and he worked with a few artists there for a year. And the contacts which தான் எங்களால் Deva approach பண்ண முடியுது. So illati it would have been very hard. But once you did approach, just the experience of working with him was really great. Our studio la vandu like I think he's close to 70 or more, but he had more fun recording this song for Venba than I had making Venba. That's like ivlo positive ana ivlo uplifting ana ஒரு person.
And the conversation எப்படி போச்சு, like pitching like சரி இந்த வீடியோ கேம்ல வர போற ஒரு பார்ட்டா இருக்க போறது compared to like movie, like what was his first reaction அப்போ அதுல கேட்டது?
So அவர்கிட்ட பேசுறதோட முதல்ல அவரோட ஏஜென்ட் அந்த மாதிரி ஒருத்தர் ஃபேமிலி மெம்பர் கிட்ட தான் பேசணும். ஆனா அவருக்குமே இந்த வீடியோ கேம்ல எப்படி வரும் அவங்களுக்கு அது வந்து ஒரு ரொம்ப புரியவே இல்லை அவங்களுக்கு. அண்ட் தேவா சார் கிட்ட மேபி ஒரு 3 minutes பேசிப்போம் டியூரிங் த இது. அண்ட் என்னன்னா அந்த புட்டு உடையும் போது ஐ ஜஸ்ட் வாண்டட் ஹிம் டு சே திங்ஸ் லைக் ஓ என்னப்பா அந்த மாதிரி லைக் என்ன கைண்ட் ஆஃப் திங்ஸ் லைக் ஆட்லிப்ஸ் பண்ணலாம் கேட்டோம். பட் அதெல்லாம் அவருக்கு எப்படி புரிய வைக்கிறது அது ரொம்ப இதுவாக இருந்தது. ஆனால் I don't think they fully understood it's for a video game. Even now, I don't think they fully understood or how it's going to be used or anything. But as soon as I said ad libs and stuff like that, he was just a professional. He's like, okay, I'll do it, and he killed it. The whole behind the scenes footage, like we asked him, like, can we record it for like promotional materials and stuff like that? So he sang it very differently when he was singing it for recording purposes. And then when he sang it for promotional purposes, he was doing a full performance because he knew that this is going to be used for, right? And as like the way he took the song and he ran with it and the situation and everything, it was just really great. Like it's like when you meet someone who's really, really, really good at their job, like you can see how it's very inspiring, right? Like that's how the whole thing felt. It was really good. And I don't think he understands. It's for a video game, but so that's how that went. And we had every song. We had like okay, but what's the final song we show for Chennai when they come back in the Dosa level? And for that, I thought, okay, instead of us like all the other songs, like are homages to all these composers that we listened to growing up, but if it's Chennai, we should show somebody who's current, right? Like there's a chance we can show somebody who's current. So then like the idea of licensing directly from Castles Collective, like which is a very present band, was very appealing. So I know somebody who knew Tenma, so we emailed Tenma bro, and he was very he understood immediately. Like he's done video game soundtracks before and stuff like that. So it was very painless. But it's just great. It's just great that they're all open. It's just finding that first contact. That's the challenging part. Once you talk to them, I think it's all very easy going. Yeah.
And with Chennai especially, it's just a it's a small space, so it's just getting to know one or two people, and then it's just like smooth sailing that afterwards. I mean, that's how I got to know Karan, like a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And yeah, but to be honest, till 2022, Karan and I did not meet
in person. Yeah, we just met
we did not
2
meet
years
in
back.
person. We just bonded through like, oh, I want to become a game designer, and we used to play Valorant together. And Karan visited New York City in 2022, and I was there studying, and that's how we actually met. Met for, but till then it was just friends. Like, you get to know one person, you get to know like 10 other people through that one person. That's how the city works.
Right. Yeah, it opens the door for sure.
Definitely. And I think we had this one question, Ipanda. Your team is extremely diverse. Like, I mean, I got to meet a few people at GDC, but how did you convince them, like when you pitched the idea or a Tamil culture game, how did you get so many like different nationality people, like different culture people to like come in and be like, cool, got them invested, got them interested in this, and they're like, okay, cool, let's go and make this game and see how it comes out at the end.
And also, like, how did you get them to be on the same page? Because cultures as such is very difficult to understand, right? To some extent, you should have been a part of the culture for a while for you to understand that. And looking at the team, it's such a, like how Karan was saying, extremely diverse. So,
so I think I'm really grateful. The more on the team or the like team members or the strength than Nasoma, right? Like I think I'm really lucky to work with people like that who are able to set aside. Okay, I will buy into your culture. I'll put the effort to understand what it's about. With Sam, he's from Indonesia, and Indonesia, because I mean, there is a lot of history of Tamil Nadu, like especially Chola kings making their way into Indo, and as a result, they have a lot of our cultural remnants there. They have put to there and everything, and they call it different things. You can see how it traveled from Tamil Nadu to the point when Sam was working on the Puttu scene, and his dad walked in, and he's like, "This is not Tamil, this is Indonesian." He's like starting an argument with it. But I think, I think I'm really like. There's two things. First, it's on me to communicate why these things are needed or what's cool and how it's cool. But the second thing is like I think the core concept of the Venba story, like I think it felt universal enough that immediately everybody was able to buy into it, right? So and the story kaha, they were willing to go through the other things, I think, right? So as soon as I pitched this idea to Sharon, even though she grew up here, she's from Bangladesh, and she wouldn't identify very closely with South Asian cultures. She has a very whitewashed kind of upbringing, but like immediately she was like, I think this is the kind of game that if people play, they'll call their moms, right? So that core emotional concept, everybody really liked. Everybody was able to take away, and we see that even now with players. Like majority of Venba players are not South Asian. But they're all having very personal and very emotional reactions to it, right? So it's just like we watch anime and we watch Hollywood movies. It's very similar. But on the other side, there's also like my responsibility of like if I'm showing biryani or if I'm showing like idli or dosa or something, like if you're making a steak, one thing that gets me excited is when you see when it gets like this golden brown color, like that means you've done a good job, and you already know it looks good, right? But you only know that because you've cooked it enough times. So andamari, there's some markers in dosa and idli and stuff like that. Like, oh, that's what it means for a good idli. That's what it means for a good biryani, right? So and then it was also important for me with something like biryani. I showed like Tamil movie scenes where there are people getting excited about biryani. This is an emotional thing for us, right? So this is how we get excited. It's a celebrative. It's a very festive thing. So all of that they were very receptive to, and then we also cooked a lot of the dishes just so they get an idea. If on the rasam, kori rasam பண்ணும்போது, like when you mix the water and the chicken stock, like with turmeric chicken stock, the fat will show up on top like bubbles. But because the turmeric is in there, the fat will show up like golden bubbles. It's a very special thing that happens. So you don't notice that until you cook together, right? And then we are documenting the whole process and stuff like that. So all of that helped. Ana, Ipo, what's happening is that, and I'm not even trying to cultivate this. My entire team is very into Tamil cinemas and movies all by themselves.
Anika, I remember you mentioning you saw LCO, the whole parts of the interview were saying.
Yeah, exactly. At the GDC Airbnb, every day we watch a different Lokesh movie. And not at my request, it's at my programmer's request. He's really into that. He's really into the soundtrack and all of that. And he's Japanese and he's half Japanese, half Egyptian. And in general, Tamil movies are big in Japan already. Right?
No, Rajinikanth is big in Japan.
Rajini is huge,
Rajini, and even Venba itself is way bigger in Japan than I expected it to be. And one person was like, when they were making the puttu level, they said, oh, இதை நான் முத்து படத்துல பார்த்திருக்கேன் அவங்க சொல்றாங்க ஜப்பான் லெவல்ல அதெல்லாம் நம்ம எதிரே பார்க்க முடியாது. So I think
now that you mentioned Muthu, did you have a particular reason for naming the calendar Muthu Travels? Because Muthu is kind of like this person who drives the chariot and all that. So Muthu Travels, was it that?
Abba. Finally someone knows. So
அது மாத்திரம் இல்ல, நாங்க வந்து அதுக்கப்புறம் எல்ஜி பெருங்காயம் நோட்டீஸ் பண்ணுவோம். Like bro,
Mysore Santhal
LG பெருங்காயம்
bro. I was like, that's the thing.
Yeah, so Muthu Travels, yes, நீங்க சொன்ன அதே reason தான். Like what I wanted to do was we ran out of time. Every time the calendar would be sponsored by a different company, and each time would be a reference to a different Tamil movie character or something like that. So I started with Muthu Travels, but we ran out of time, and we couldn't do the others. But yeah, thank you for noticing. That's great.
What were the different ones? We're curious to know. I mean, but we are interested.
Yeah, I think I wanted to do the Sundara Travels also. I wanted to do.
Sundara Travels.
Right?
Legend.
Man, too good. Yeah.
Too good.
And then I wanted to do Annamalai milk product, like dairy. Right?
So, references are so strong.
Yeah, if you start doing Rajini, you can do Rajini all the way, right? So, there's a lot of small Tamil cinema references that I think some are too obscure. I think we had too much fun with them, but it's fun to see when people notice them.
அவங்க achievements பார்த்தேன், I found out what போச்சு ஆரம்பிக்கலாமா, all of these things were like
put chutney, dude.
Put chutney, exactly. I was like, no, I'm wondering, okay, it's very nice when people say like, oh cool, they might not get it, but for us when we played, we're like, oh my god, this is so creative at this point. எப்படி யோசிச்சு பண்ணிருக்கா அப்படின்ட்டு. And did you just had fun with making that, or was it like what were your intentions when referencing it at that point?
So achievements, usually indie developers hate achievements. So achievements are platform requirements, right? So it adds QA time, it adds cost. And if you don't have achievements, you can't release on PS5. You'll fail certification. You can release on PS5 or Xbox. But for me, and the achievements were like another window. Okay, now I can do all these other references that I can't do in the game, right? So it was really fun for me. So my favorite one is the Annanakoru Uthapam achievement, right? So that one.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. Because it was a personal dilemma for me. Like in the Uthapam, na pachamalaga illa na saapidave matten, right? And in general, that's very common. Okay, but like I also wanted to recreate Vadivelu's specific version. So how do we do that, right? So his recipe doesn't have green chilies in it, right? So if you make it without green chilies, then you get that achievement. And what's cool is that when you have these achievements, there are achievement hunters who play the game, and because of that, they learn about these references. There are people who've learned about these scenes and things that have no business learning about them, right? So it's a way to like motivate them to go, hey, here's something I think is cool. Here's something, like that kind of stuff. So for me, they were really fun. And I think it'll be a lot more fun for the next one also. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like you try to bring in like culture references wherever you could. At the planning, was this like a part like, okay, I'm gonna try out something like this, or how did that like just come up in between at that point?
It was very different, bro. It was like I did it as much as I could. It wasn't like there was no stopping point for me, right? So if given time, I would have done more and more references and all of that, right? So like they were for me, they're the funnest part. And what I thought at the time was like no one is going to notice these things for like years and years. But thankfully, like even 3 years ago, I think gaming from Tamil Nadu has transformed it's just exploded now. There's a lot more streamers, a lot more platforms, and there were people day one in Tamil Nadu, like YouTubers, waiting for Venba, Tamil gaming.
I saw their video. They made a whole cooking this thing to announce that Venba's coming out of Dinter.
Yeah. அதெல்லாம் நான் எதிரே பார்க்கல, right? So அவங்க Mangani Gamer and PGYT, all these people, right? So அவங்களாம் on point இருந்தாங்க, all references. So I thought that would take maybe a few years for it to propagate until the audience grows and everything, but no, they were more than ready. So yeah, I'm really, really happy about that.
That's awesome. And one thing that I noticed in the sounds, every dish, இப்போ வந்து கடுகு தாளிக்கும் போது or something like that, you got that exact. And I had a very brief conversation with your sound designer, and she said that you made her cook like every dish at that point for her to learn. Was that like actually the reason, and is that how she got to record that, or?
Yeah, so Neha is Gujarati. I mean, she was born in Montreal and everything, but she has a Gujarati heritage. So அவ வந்து எப்படின்னா like okay, if I'll make okay, this is இது மாதிரி தானே, like இந்த dish மாதிரி தானே, so let me try to use some shortcuts, or which makes sense, right? But a lot of South Indian peppering is very different than North Indian peppering. So she's like, sometimes we would have discussions about like, do you want every single spice to be its own separate sound? And I will be like, yes, I want every single spice to be its own separate. I think she will have her specificities too. She'll like for utensils and metal sounds, she will go get those things. She put her own research into and she won't be satisfied with just YouTube videos or sound libraries, right? So because those recipes were new to her also, it was very important for her to cook and learn on her own. So I'm really happy that even for someone who's not familiar with it, like she was willing to like put in the work and familiarize herself with it.
Wonderful. I mean, because when you make rasam, when you make dosai, and even when you like and molaga, when you put it initially, like you hear the sound so beautifully, and I'm sure sound music, you try to bring in the culture in any way possible, like we were just speaking, right? And that is something that's like, I was like, okay, cool, இப்போ எங்க அம்மா பண்ணும்போது இந்த மாதிரி தான் சவுண்ட் வரும் கிச்சன்ல இருந்து, and then இந்த இட்லி ஸ்டீம் வரும்போது இந்த மாதிரி தான் சவுண்ட் வரும், and all these things. So that also added like every single point when I was playing the game. Like, okay, cool. Like I just remembering how my mom used to cook at that point.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Even I think after coming here, I've been cooking quite a bit. Like I to be honest, I never used to cook back home. I just அப்பப்போ காஃபி போடுறது அவ்வளவுதான், right? Or tea போடுறது அவ்வளவுதான். Beyond that, I wouldn't do anything. They'll be like, do something. I'll be like, மிஞ்சி போனா ரைஸ் வைக்கிறேன், right? And after that, I started cooking here and all that. And when I was playing Venba, especially the biryani section of it, felt pretty much like cooking, right? In the sense that like you had these order which you had to follow. This is what you drop and all that. So I just started playing it, and I was like doing it how I would do it, and then it reset saying illa konja or particular order irukku நம்ம தப்பா பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். But it was a great experience. I just like, it felt like okay, சமைக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கு. It's just it was satisfactory. So I think people who regularly cook, they will relate, like people who regularly cook South Indian would probably relate to this a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think அது ஒரு பிரச்சனையும் தான். Like, when you manage difficulty, you have in real life knowledge can make recipes less difficult, because the recipes are meant to be accurate, right? So for example, on the PGYT YouTuber, he played with his mom, and biryani section வரும்போது, the idea is like you look at different memories, and you gather clues, and then you try to do it, right? அவங்க மெமரி எதுவுமே கிளிக் பண்ணல. அவங்க பாட்டுக்கு தெரியும் இதை போட அதை போட she was just going in the order. She no mistakes until the end. And இவன் வந்து அவங்க பையன் வந்து சொல்றான், இல்லம்மா இதை பாப்போம்னு சொல்றது கேம்னா, அதெல்லாம் வேணாம் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி she was just killing it, right? So it's both a good and a bad thing. Good thing is that அவங்களோட cooking experiences and knowledge game contradict பண்ணாம it's allowing for that, which is the most important thing. The bad thing is that they're going to get a slightly or much easier gameplay experience than other players, right? So it's hard to balance it that way. Yeah.
But I'm curious, in the recipes now, was this from your house, or how did you collaborate specifically with that to get each of these recipes?
Yeah, so recipes on the first, like almost, like it was a huge process. முதல்ல இப்போ any South Asian or South Indian recipe, it's like 20-40 different ingredients and steps எல்லாம் put together, right? So அது அத்தனையும் நம்ம வந்து ஒரு கேம் பிளே டேபிள் வச்சோமோ, it's very overwhelming for the player. It's very confusing, especially for players who are not familiar with the cuisine. ஆனால் எனக்கு வந்து இல்லை, அது வந்து ரியலிஸ்டிக்காக இருக்கணும், அத்தன்டிக்காக இருக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு பயங்கர ஒரு எண்ணம் இருந்தது. ஸோ இட் வாஸ் ரியலி ஹார்ட் ஃபார் மீ டு பேலன்ஸ் போத் ஆஃப் தட் டுகெதர், ரைட்? ஸோ அப்புறம் தான் ஐ வாஸ் லைக், ஓகே, நீ வந்து ஸ்பைசஸ் அரைக்கிறதுல நீ ஆரம்பிக்க வேண்டாம். லைக் we'll show that there are some spices pre-ground. For biryani, let's have the meat pre-marinated. So that way you're cutting down on steps, but you're not cutting down on accuracy, right? So like that kind of accessibility was needed. But for the recipes themselves, I think I had to do like machine learning basically. Like I just watched and read, so many recipes and so many different things. Madras Samil, Food Area Tamil, like all the YouTubers, Village Cooking, all
Village
all
Cooking channel. Oh my God.
Yeah. Like all of them. And then I talked to, obviously, இப்போ வீட்டில் அம்மா மாதிரி ஒரு ரிசோர்ஸ் இருக்குன்னா கண்டிப்பாக அவங்களோட ஒப்பீனியன்ஸ் அண்ட் எவ்ரிதிங் இஸ் ரியலி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட். பட் அவங்க கிட்ட மட்டும் நம்ம நிறுத்தக்கூடாது. ஏன்னா எவ்ரிபடி ஹாஸ் அ டிஃப்ரெண்ட் opinion. So talking to them, talking to friends, parents, talking to chefs, local chefs, chefs from like amateur chefs from India, stuff like that. And man nariya pesite. For me, what was important was understanding why certain recipes are the way they are, right? இப்போ வந்து ரசமா வந்து தாளிக்கிறாங்கன்னா ஏன் தாளிப்பை வந்து தனியாக ஆட் பண்ணுறேன். இப்போ நிறைய பேருக்கு அது தெரியாது. ஸோ தாளிப்பை ஏன் தனியாக ஆட் பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா அந்த ஈரத்தில் பண்ணும்போது சூடு அதால் தாங்கிக்க முடியாது, அதனால் மெல்ட் ஆகிடும். ஆனால் இப்போ ரசத்தை நீங்கள் வந்து ரெகுலர் பாத்திரத்தில் பண்ணுறீங்கன்னா நீங்கள் அப்படி தாளிக்கணுங்கிற அவசியம் கிடையாது. ஆனால் இப்போ நிறைய பேர் என்ன பண்ணுறாங்க, முதலையும் தாளிக்கிறாங்க, எண்ணிலையும் தாளிக்கிறாங்க. ஸோ அதெல்லாம் வந்து ஒரு so I have to understand the theory and philosophy behind the recipe first. Then once I'm comfortable enough that okay, I know why this recipe exists like the way it does, now I'm feeling a bit more comfortable tweaking or omitting a few steps because the end product is still the same, right? Just to make it fit game design. இப்போ இட்லி மாதிரி இதுலனா நிறைய players வந்து especially younger players, when they play idli, they're like, oh, this is wrong, idli வந்து இப்படி பண்ணக்கூடாது அப்படின்னா, because they don't know about அவங்க வந்து they're too young to remember, and I am too young to remember also, but the towel method and அந்த பழைய
பிளேட்ல வைக்கிறதுல I was wondering like what was that step for initially when I was playing through it. I'm like, இது எதுக்கு வரும்? then when I reset and tried it again, I was like, okay, towel கீழ போட்டதுக்கு அப்புறம் then I'll add it up.
Yeah, so அப்போ அந்த டைட்டில் வந்து பிளேட்ஸ்ல அந்த மாவுக்கான ஓட்டை வந்து the air holes are much bigger that the மாவு will just leak, right? So இப்போ நினைக்கிறாங்க துணி வந்து they will put it for softer idlis, and it's true, it does make softer idlis. பட் அந்த டைட்டில் துணி போட்டே ஆகும். அந்த வெசல்ஸ் டைப்ல இந்த 70s 80s வந்து முதல் இது வந்து அப்படி தான் இருக்கும். இப்போ கூட ரெஸ்டாரண்ட் ஸ்டைலில் இந்த ஒரு ஸ்கொயர் பாக்ஸ் மாதிரி வச்சுருப்பாங்க இட்லி பண்ணுறது, டக்குன்னு தட்டு வச்சு எடுக்கிறது. அங்கெல்லாம் போட்டிங்கன்னா அதே மாதிரி தான் இருக்கும், முள்ளு மாதிரி இருக்கும், அந்த ஓட்டை பெருசாக இருக்கும், அந்த கையை கிழிக்கவே இருக்கும். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இதெல்லாம் when you start researching into it, it starts giving, that makes a much more interesting puzzle than the modern idli cooker, which doesn't have towels, which doesn't have, you don't need to rotate it properly and all of those things, right? So that was really interesting for me. So that also lined up with Venba's timelines. Our 80s ling vandirukanga, obviously avangaloda cooker will be a older style, right? So yeah, it was very fun.
எனக்கு வந்து இனிஷியல் ஸ்டோரி ப்ளே பண்ணும்போது, பிகாஸ் ஐ ஹேட் ஃபேமிலி ஹூ ஹேட் த வெரி சேம் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ். இப்போ வந்து கனடா வந்துட்டு தேவர் லைக், ஓ இஸ் திஸ் கோயிங் டு ஒர்க் அவுட், அண்ட் தட் இனிஷியல் ஸ்டோரி ஆர்க் வாஸ் பிரில்லியன்ட். அண்ட் நான் பார்த்தபோது I was like, oh my god, என் ஃபேமிலியில் இந்த மாதிரி this has happened, and this is like I've seen this happen, and they're like, oh, contemplating the decision, திரும்பி போகலாமா, இங்கே இருக்கலாமா, திரும்பி போகலாமா. And of course Canada is like very different right now than when it was then. How much of it like was உங்களோட பர்சனல் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்லேருந்து, was it like had you written that, or was it like experiences from people who you've interacted with?
Yeah. Um, I think every decade coming to Canada becomes significantly easier to the point where இப்போ வந்து நம்ம இந்தியாவிலேருந்து யாராவது மூவ் பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா இட்ஸ் ஸ்டில் அ பிக் மூவ் பட் மூவ் பண்ணிட்டு கோயிங் பேக் இஸ் நாட் அ தட் பிக் ஆஃப் டீல் பட் தெர் ஆர் டைம்ஸ் வென் மூவிங் டு கேனடா வாஸ் அ ஒன் வே ட்ரிப் லைக் தே ஹேட் நோ ஐடியா வென் தே வுட் கம் பேக் அண்ட் ஸ்டப் லைக் தட் அந்த டைம் பீரியடில் தான் ஐ வாண்டட் Venba to start because it drives home how much more of a challenge it was and everything. Compared to me and my parents, we came here in 2006, which is still very different than coming here now. But world was a lot more smaller because of internet, because of either and all of these things, right? So um, for me, that inspiration came from talking to a lot of my friends and their parents here. So in general, there is a diaspora media that talks about how hard it is to be an immigrant kid and all of those things. ஆனால் எனக்கு அது எப்போதுமே அதை பார்க்கும்போது இந்தியாவில் இருக்கிறவங்க எவ்வளோ கஷ்டப்பட்டு இங்கே வராங்க ஆர் there was a time when அப்ராட்ல இருக்கிறவங்கள அவங்க எப்படி பார்க்குறாங்க which is like you're very lucky to have these opportunities அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பார்வையில் தான் பார்ப்பாங்க அப்போது எவ்வளோ லக்கியாக இருக்கிற பசங்க வந்து they're complaining about ஓ வீட்டில் ஒரு கல்ச்சர் வெளில ஒரு கல்ச்சர் இதெல்லாம் ஒரு பிரச்சனையா அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி தான் எனக்கு இருக்கும் அந்த மீடியா அதெல்லாம் ஒரு பிரச்சனை தான் பட் எனக்கு அது பார்க்கும்போது எனக்கு அப்படி தான் ஸோ ஐ வாண்டட் டு த திங் தட் pushed me more was like the parents who came here in the 70s 80s எஸ்பெஷலி இந்தியாவிலேருந்து வந்தவங்க இருக்காங்க அண்ட் இந்த டொரண்டோவில் எஸ்பெஷலி ஈழம் தமிழ் பீப்புள் நிறைய பேர் இருக்காங்க அண்ட் த கண்டிஷன்ஸ் தே லெஃப்ட் பிஹைண்ட் டு கம் ஹியர் it was a war struggle, right? And இங்க வந்து அவங்களுக்கு ஒன்றும் ஈஸியான லைஃப் கிடையாது so when they grow up here and they live very isolated lives um, and then they're not able to connect with their own children also அந்த ஒரு struggle எவ்வளோ மோசமான ஒரு struggle that's what I wanted to show with Venba so it was not my personal story and இப்போ obviously கவின் மாதிரி ஒரு லைஃப்பும் எனக்கு கிடையாது because I came at an age where I was still very rooted in Tamil culture and I still am, right? So, but certain small instances, like when I was young, I went to my friend's place and avangaloda amma vandu she was very excited to meet a Tamil person and to speak in Tamil with me. And நாங்க தமிழ்ல பேசும்போது அந்த பையன் இங்கிலீஷ்ல பேசுவான் and I had to act as a translator between them. So the idea of even being a translator between a mom and a son was very unnerving for me at that age. அப்போ அது வந்து சொந்த பசங்களோட உங்களோட மொழியில பேச முடியல or you can't even understand them completely. It was very sad and very tragic, right? So you come to Canada with the hopes of a better life, but at what cost? Financially, it's better, but you lose out a lot of things, right? So that's what I wanted Venba to focus on. So it's not my personal story, but it was a lot of the stories I've witnessed and seen here growing up.
Your entry into game development, how was that? As being a Tamil game dev in Canada, like your first steps into that, was there something that impacted you at that point?
Yeah, so I think it was a struggle to be recognized as a game designer rather than as a programmer in the circles, in game dev circles, right? So by default, so okay, so even on I think it's as Indian folks, that's what we're known for here. But just a small struggle of okay, இவனால டிசைன் பண்ண முடியும், can you lead a team? Like அது வந்து நேச்சுரலா என்கிட்ட வராது. Even though I always felt like I had a lot to offer in those teams and stuff like that, right? So I think that was a struggle. But I think all of that went away when I met people like Sam and my team, right? Who were very curious, very excited to work and talk. I never saw myself as a Tamil game developer, but I always wanted to make ideas that were like this, and always I wanted to make ideas that are inspired by Tamil movies and like you make movies you make games that you're inspired by, and almost all the content I watch is Tamil movies and media and music and stuff like that. And I think that's what's helping in Venba because I never really worried about இது வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் போய் சேருமா எல்லாருக்கும் பிடிக்குமா அப்படின்னு நான் நினைக்கவே இல்லை. As soon as I got the chance, okay, we have one chance, I'm going to put everything I want to do with all the Tamil references and everything in it, right? And I think, ironically, that helped it reach a lot more people. Normally, what people would do is like, okay, the rest of the world doesn't know about Tamil culture and stuff like that. So either let's dumb it down or let's over-explain different things. And I think I strayed away from that. I just presented it as if you already know those things. And what I found is that people really like that. Like and that helps it reach even deeper, I think. So now that Venba's worked to the extent it's worked, I want to go even more Tamil for the next few ideas and stuff like that.
Oh my God, you're waiting for it now.
Thank you.
And I think Akshay and I, we had some questions for you because I heard you at IGF, and one of the things that stood out to me was your line about Vetrimaran.
My favorite Tamil movie director, Vetrimaran, he would often say, the more local you are, the more international you become. I think Venba is a very, very local story. And I'm really, really happy that it's resonated with so many of you. Thank you so much.
What was that influence of Vetrimaran? Which movie of it was like, oh my God, it's going to stick to me, and this guy's like my favorite director right now?
Favorite Vetrimaran movie? Which one is like your...
Yeah, so Vetrimaran is such an interesting director. Our because his movies, more and more, it doesn't have a lip sync. It doesn't have proper dubbing. He goes, shoots the movie, and then he writes dialogues for it later. இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு டேரக்டர் நான் பார்த்ததே கிடையாது. ஆனால் his movies are so good regardless, right? It just ties you down. And I was a huge fan since Adukalam. The reason I say that is like, there's one aspect where I'm like, ஒரு மூவினா இப்படி இருக்கணும் and all of that. Pacing அப்படி இருக்கணும், characters அப்படி இருக்கணும். And then Vetrimaran has none of those things, and I still love his movies a lot more. So to me, the favorite movie right now, I would say, is Vada Chennai. When I watched it, I really liked it. And first half, I remember theater, people are getting up and talking. And the first half, he holds up on the carom, he holds up the thing. Yeah, and then the whole கடைசியில் அங்கே தான் ட்விஸ்ட் வரும். தனுஷ்தான் is the spy அப்படிங்கிறது. அது முடிச்சுட்டு everybody is getting up for popcorn and they're talking and stuff like that. என்னால் யார்கிட்டையும் பேசவும் முடியல, இது பண்ணல. I was just sitting, I was just processing. Yeah, he's great.
We spoke about music director. Do you have Illayaraja or AR Rahman? I know you said you would, but like the legends பார்த்தோம்னா, who is like your pick at that point?
அதனால தான் நான் ரெண்டு பேரையும் போட்டிருக்கேன். I think it changes. It's really hard. Sometimes I've answered this question, even in Venba interviews, I've answered it as Rahman sometimes. Sometimes I've answered it as Raja. So I think it really depends on whose album I'm listening to. Right now, it's leaning towards Raja for me. But I know tomorrow it might change to Rahman. I can't choose.
Cool.
Another thing, just so that we are on this note right now. We were talking about movies, music and all that. To what extent did Venba's love story was inspired by Maniratnam அந்த மாதிரி? ஏன்னா low-key it felt like, அது ஒரு லைட்டா மணிரத்னம் ஸ்டைல் ரைட்டிங் இருக்கு.
Really? Oh wow. I mean, no, I'm a huge
ரொம்ப சட்டலா தான், but still it felt like, okay, this is definitely possible in a Maniratnam movie.
Yeah, interesting. I'm a huge Mani fan, for sure. Especially up until Kanathil Muthamittal, like all his movies, very தரமான பார்த்துருக்கேன். And so wow, இருக்கிறதுக்கு பயங்கர வாய்ப்புகள் இருக்கு. I didn't mean it consciously or either, but I won't deny either. I think a lot of Venba Paavalan is inspired by my parents. Like Venba Paavalan oda மீதி விஷயங்கள் is not inspired by my parents, but that story specifically, அவங்க சொன்ன ரொம்ப அசால்ட்டாக தான் சொன்னாங்க. இவ்வளோ ரொமான்டிக்காவோ கதையெல்லாம் இப்படி தான் நடந்துச்சு அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி தான் சொன்னாங்க. ஸோ that's where it comes from. But அது லோக்கியாக சட்டிலாக சொல்கிறதே I think is a very Mani style of showing it, right?
Yeah.
So no, that's a huge compliment, so I'll take it.
I mean, yeah, we've grown up watching Mani movies. We watch it right now.
I mean, அலைப்பா இதெல்லாம் உசுரு bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I wish I was Maddie.
Yeah.
நடக்காது.
நம்மளா விவேக் தான் bro அந்த படத்துல. இது பார்க்கும்போது
அதுவும் வெறும் விவேக் கூட இல்ல, மின்னலே விவேக் மாதிரி சுத்திட்டு இருக்கும்.
Paavalan design, was it inspired from Rajinikanth? I actually had this question.
Yeah, because hairstyle, beard, அப்புறம் அந்த கண்ணாடி, அந்த aviator glasses was like, oh, ஒரு 80s Rajini கொஞ்சம் பயங்கர எனர்ஜி இருக்கு.
ஸ்பெசிபிக்லி அந்த 6-60 வரை ரஜினி, அந்த படத்துல இருந்த ரஜினி தான் நாங்கள் பயங்கர ரெஃபரன்ஸ் எடுத்து போட்டோம். ஃப்ரம் த பிகினிங் ஒரு இது இருக்கு, லைக் ஏர்லி டெஸ்ட் தட் சாம் மேட் வேர் ரஜினி சிகரெட் பிடிக்கிற மாதிரி பாவலன் பிடிக்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு ஸ்மால் அனிமேஷன், டெஸ்ட் அனிமேஷன் வி ஹவ் டன். அதையும் நான் எடுத்து காட்டுறேன். அண்ட் லைக் ஈவன் த சீன் வேர் ஹீஸ் ரைட்டிங் in the night after the park incident, அது அப்படியே ஒரு 6-60 அப்படியே எடுத்துவார். அதே framing, அதே light and all of those things. So I'm a huge Rajini fan if that's not obvious. And
okay, this was something which I was going to ask. Rajini or Kamala? Yes, Rajini bro. I'm an all-out Rajini fan. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And I'm a Kamal fan now, but Rajini is always.
But
goat.
Rajini is always.
One statement that you brought out during GDCA was initial publishing of, like, you're trying to find publishing and all these things. If people who are coming new and who want to get into games, like we've seen, like you said, நிறைய தமிழ் பேர் பார்த்திருக்கோம் who wants to get into games. What advice do you have for them, or in general for people who want to get into gaming? Where do you think they should start?
Yeah, it's really hard to give useful but like encompassing advice. ஏன்னா situation பயங்கரமா மாறுது, right? And இப்போ எங்களுக்கே வந்து pitching Venba was a very different experience than pitching the second game. And இப்போவும் like it's a lot easier, but it's not trivial either. There's a lot of challenges that we're facing and everything. But I think the main thing I'll say is that publishers are வந்து, I used to think of them as creative people, right? So என் கேம் பாரு எவ்வளோ மாசு, இதை நீங்கள் வந்து கண்டிப்பாக ஃபன் பண்ணுங்க. லைக் ஐம் மேக்கிங் கிரியேட்டிவ் அப்பீல்ஸ், ரைட்? ஸோ ஆனால் இட்ஸ் ஈஸியர் டு திங்க் ஆஃப் தெம். They actually function more like VCs, venture capitalists, right? So for them, they want to see that, hey, has this studio, like the game they're pitching, is that a game that's similar in the market, that's worked? Adu work aayuchna in the game work avlo dhaan ungala calculation, right? So what's happening is that I would have had a much, Venba was so different for them. They didn't see a market for it at the time. ஏன்னா அந்த மாதிரி அவங்க எதுவுமே பார்த்தது, it's too new, too risky, whatever, right? But had they founded Venba, I think that they would have been very, very happy. But because it was new then, they couldn't see it. Ana, what I think ironically I would have had an easier time is if I pitched like a South Asian Hades or something like that, right? அந்த மாதிரி நான் pitch பண்ணியிருந்தேன்னா, okay, Hades இருக்கு, this is a South Asian thing, we haven't seen that before, that's new. This budget is small, the art is nice, so they'll fund it, right? So not taking publisher feedback too personally, I think is very important. And trying to make sure that, like, we don't want to make a game that a publisher wants, right? If I had adjusted and changed Venba to a point where what the publisher wants, then I would have made it. It would have been funded, but I think it would have been a much worse game. Workardo, like at least it's my game that's working, right? So we spent 2-3 years making a game. It's a lot of effort and time. We should at least make sure that we're making a game that we want to make, right? So I think it's pretty vague, but like right now, with our next game, people are asking, publishers are asking, we expected Venba mari இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ணோம், இது ரொம்ப டிஃப்ரெண்டா இருக்கு அப்படி. So it's always a cycle, right? And now I know that people are putting like other indie devs are putting Venba on their slides saying like, our game is similar to Venba, so this will also work. ஆனா என்னன்னா, like the next big thing after Uber is not another Uber like app, right? It's something completely different. Before Uber, there was no Uber like app, right? So so every time you track culture, every time you track the market, you're doomed to fall behind it, So other புரிஞ்சுட்டு, like as long as you believe in the idea, you believe that it's fun, you believe that it's good. Especially I would say, like, really advise against, if there's anything you can take away from Venba's success, please take the fact how well it did. Like even though how authentic it was, like that, those were not problems, right? So don't dumb it down, yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool. And I think last question for you, which I had, is TGA future class member அதோட experience எப்படி இருக்கு? Like what is that? Because Akshay and I were like, oh cool, like we saw a Tamil guy who's right now up there. Like it's the first time I'm seeing one. But nice. What's that experience like for you right now at TGA?
Yeah, so once again, completely unexpected. So the way future class nominations works is that you ask people to nominate you, and or maybe some of the jury nominates you, and then you get selected and be made as one of the 50 folks or something, right? I didn't ask anybody to nominate me or anything. Actually, before I even found out I was part of the future class, I got an email from Lizanne, who made the video. Like, she is the director for the video, saying like, oh, you're congrats on being part of future class. Eppo on the video edukalam. Like, you know, it's like that's for me. I was processing a lot of that. So it was a big. I think for me, I see it as once again, a lot of the people must have nominated me without me asking, without me realizing. There's a lot of Venba succeed ஆகணுங்கிற ஒரு ஆசை வந்து நிறைய பேருக்கு இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். So just like the awards night, all these people showed up. I think future class is a result of that. So I'm really, really grateful for that. For the video itself, I felt very uncomfortable, like being the face of Venba, because or Visai or all of those things, you know, it's not a singular person's effort, right? The whole team and everything, and like a lot of the things you guys like about Venba is not new in Venba. It's just Tamil culture that is shown in Venba for the first time. So on the video வரும்போது I said, listen, like I'm very uncomfortable with this, but இதை பண்ணணும்னா can we show Tamil stores, can we show Tamil food and you know, people, Tamil YouTubers playing Venba, இவங்கெல்லாம் முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு நம்ம காட்டலாமா? And to my surprise, Lizanne was very, very happy to do all of those things. So அதெல்லாம் நாங்கள் காட்டினோம். அந்த சில கடைகளை காமிச்சோம், லோக்கல் கடைகளை. Those guys are very happy that they showed up in the video and all of that. So I'm really happy about those things. But it's been really fun to meet other future class members also. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think on the video I saw some, like you mentioned, like on the streamers who streamed with their mom and all these people. I saw clips of those people also appearing in your video, which is like really, really great. And when I go to YouTube and type Venba, I saw like, oh my God, I appeared in the Game Awards for like 1 second in that scene of Fantastic. That's so cool.
Both of them, PGYT and Mangani, they're both really happy. Really, really happy about it. And நான் யூஎஸ்ல ஏதோ ஒரு ட்ரிப்ல இருந்தேன். I had to call them. Basically, I have to get their permission to see if they want to be the. அவங்க ரெண்டு பேருக்கும் வந்து they were really என்ன ப்ரோ சொல்றீங்க அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இதில் போயிட்டாங்க, கேம் அவார்ட்ஸ் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி போயிட்டாங்க. ஸோ அதெல்லாம் எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம் தான். The fact that I was able to share that with them. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the time that we have with you, Abhi. Again, thank you so much. We absolutely loved having you here. The conversation நாங்க எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ணதை விட we had so much more fun talking to you.
So much fun. Like it just felt somewhat comfortable the whole time. It was like, somebody gets references.
எனக்கு அப்படிதான். நீங்க மொத்த டிராவல்ஸ் நோட் பண்ணதுல எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம்.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for your time, Abhi. Wishing you all the best with your second game, and congratulations so much on the success of the first one and Venba. Well, thank you so much for your time. We hope you have a happy new year to you in advance. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much.
நான் வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் திரும்பி போனேன். லைக் ஐயோ நம்ம அதுக்கப்புறம் லைக் பரவாயில்ல எனக்கு மீட் பண்ணி ஆனோன்னு அப்படின்னு நான் திரும்பி வந்தேன். And then I saw you guys. I'm like, அப்போ ஃபோட்டோ கிடச்சிட்டு ஒன்று எல்லாருக்கும் மெசேஜ் பண்ணேன், நான் வெண்பா ஆளை மீட் பண்ணேன், வெண்பா ஆளுங்களை மீட் பண்ணேன், ஃபோட்டோ எடுத்துட்டு அப்படின்னு.